Donald Trump has announced on social media that Venezuela will be turning over millions of barrels of sanctioned oil to the US in the wake of the capture of President Nicolas Maduro. In a post, the US president says the interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over between 30 to 50 million barrels of high-quality oil. He goes on to say this oil will be sold at its market price and that money will be controlled by me as President of the US to ensure it is used to the benefit of the people of Venezuela and the United States. Saul Kavonic is the head of energy research at MST Financial and joins us now. Saul Kavonic, welcome. So what does it appear Donald Trump is doing with the Venezuelan oil industry?
Well, this recent announcement by Trump that Venezuela is turning over up to 50 million barrels of crude to the US government, which the US government will then sell and use the proceeds for the, quote, benefit of Venezuela and the United States. It starts to put some of the pieces together about what Trump actually means when he said that the US will run Venezuela after his operation to take President Maduro out of the country. And like one thing we do know about Trump is he's someone who believes that money and business is what makes the world go around, and oil revenue accounts for the majority of the Venezuelan government budget. And so what you can see here is the US government has placed sanctions and an embargo on Venezuelan oil, and now being able to control the oil exports and their sale and what happens to that revenue, that's going to provide the Trump administration with a lot of leverage over the Venezuelan government, whichever way the Venezuelan governance transition goes. And this may be the way that Trump seeks to exercise influence and run Venezuela, to use his terminology, without actually having a significant on-the-ground presence from a military standpoint.
So what do you make of the manner in which he is doing this or planning to do this?
Well, it's very early days. No one's really actually tried to do anything of this nature before. As I mentioned, there is going to be a significant amount of influence that he can exert if he can continue to control essentially the majority of the Venezuelan government revenue. A lot of the volume that was going from Venezuela was going to China and now go to the US. So this could be a kind of a geopolitical win for the US and a loss for China. But if you want to see what Trump's ambitions here actually play out, where he wants to see a more pro-US and pro-investment regime take place with the Venezuelan government, this is, very early days, and there's a lot of pieces that need to fall into place. And I think particularly, looking at it from an oil market perspective, the market wants to see some stability here. They want to see a situation where confidence can return, investment can return, which will then boost Venezuela revenues again. And this most recent announcement is adding to uncertainty and volatility rather than adding to a sense of stability.
And we'll get to the Venezuelan oil industry in a moment, but I just want to ask one more kind of politically associated question, and you asking like the pieces falling into place. Could this explain why he has opted to continue relations with the existing Venezuelan administration rather than, it seems, expressing support for the opposition leader who wants to get back into the country?
Well, all the rhetoric that we've seen out of the Trump administration over the last 48 hours has been much more focused on the US's ability to exert influence, and particularly to do that via oil, rather than necessarily what the international legal ramifications of what they're doing is, or necessarily what the Venezuelan people from a will of the people perspective have voted for previously. So the priority seems to be what's good for the US as part of that America First doctrine. And I guess what's good for Venezuela, we all hope will at least come in second there. But it's, that's something we have to see how it'll play out over the next 12 months. It's very early days to see, to make a determination if this is going to be for the better or worse for the Venezuelan people.
Yeah. Venezuela production of oil only accounts for 1% of global exports at the moment. What are the implications for the global oil industry if this Donald Trump apparent plan was to succeed and he was able to be securing many of the Venezuelan exports into the future?
Well, if what Trump envisages is actually successfully executed, by which he means to bring in a lot of foreign investment and double or triple the amount of oil output out of Venezuela, that's significant threefold. First of all, from a global perspective and our perspective here in Australia, that will put significant downward pressure on oil prices from 2027 onwards, and bring down energy costs, and also potentially break up some of the influence of the OPEC cartel on the global oil market. Secondly, it has ramifications for China. China will lose one of its sources of cheap discounted oil, and the US will benefit by getting that instead. And Lastly, you're likely to see US companies, and particularly Chevron, benefit most here from that development because they're already there and be willing to invest. Again, only once certain various pieces get put in place to encourage investment, which includes geopolitical stability and local governance frameworks, which will actually allow investors to go back to Venezuela.